Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's event on common HubSpot CMS misconceptions, where we're going to explore some of the things that are, at least in my experience, most commonly misunderstood about HubSpot's capabilities as a content management system. And maybe we'll discover one or two that are true too. Who knows? I'm Phil Vallander, and I'm the co-founder of Blend, and we're an agency specializing in website design and development on the HubSpot platform. And I'm pleased to be joined once again by Gabe Wahhab. Gabe is Senior Product Marketing Manager at HubSpot on the Content Hub team. And prior to joining HubSpot, Gabe worked in website development for many years at a number of agencies. And so he has excellent experience and expertise with which to help me dig into today's topic. Hi, Gabe. It's great to have you back again. How have you been? How's life been for you since the launch of Content Hub in April?
Oh, it's first, thanks so much for having me back. Love always coming on the show here. But no, it's been very busy. Reception to Content Hub has been big, a lot of interest. So we've been very busy.
That's great to hear. Content Hub has been very well received here too. And of course, we're looking forward to Inbound, which is coming around very soon as well. I'm sure there'll be a lot of talk about Content Hub there too. Before we dive into the conversation, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the context for today's discussion and why there are so many varied perceptions around what HubSpot CMS can and can't do. And for my part, I think it's at least a bit due to the fact that HubSpot really only entered the content management system market relatively recently, and it's a competitive and mature market. And I think it's surprised some people how robust and compelling HubSpot's offering has become in a relatively short period of time. And that's generated both excitement for it, but also some skepticism around it as well. Does that sort of ring true with you, Gabe, at all?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I feel like the people who use it and know it well just absolutely love it. They say a lot of things like, "Hey, I would never go back to coding the way I previously did or creating websites the way I previously did." But for those people who don't know it, or people maybe who have tried it a long time ago, back when it was still actually pretty early and fresh, maybe they didn't have the best experience at the time. It's actually kind of interesting. We've actually had a CMS since 2006. Most people actually don't know that, but it wasn't really till 13 that it became a good CMS. That was really kind of the turning point when they kind of released version 1, I would maybe even call it, because I would call the original version maybe a very light CMS. It was something I wouldn't have used at the time, but it's actually in 2013 when we launched the version 1. At the time, is actually called the COS, the Content Optimization System, which some people may remember. But it was really at that point that things took a big shift, and that's actually when we got really interested in it, was 2013, because it actually did a few things at that time that were revolutionary. If you go back and look at it, first was personalization. So you could take a system that was actually that you could take content and you could personalize it. And first for the mid market, the small business, that was something that was unheard of at the time. But the other thing that was also very revolutionary at the time was it was a SaaS CMS. And that was one of the biggest things that appealed to us was the SaaS and everything that comes around with that.
Really good points. I think one of the sort of secrets or the reasons underlying the success of HubSpot CMS and now Content Hub is HubSpot chose the right business problems to solve a lot of the time, and that's made for a really, really compelling product. But you make a good point too, that building landing pages and blogs in Marketing Hub back in 2006, 7, 8 required CMS functionality. We just didn't call it that necessarily. And then that was opened up to support more of a full website experience. 2013, very first time that sort of started to come to market, COS. We were quick to adopt it, seeing how well it addressed the business challenges of our target customer at the time. And then to your other point, even though that is still relatively recent, in the grand scheme of things, you've come a long, long way since, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, long way for sure.
Okay, well, my aim today is to give everybody listening balanced and honest responses to some of the misconceptions that I hear most commonly talking to potential users of HubSpot CMS every day, as we do since we specialize on it. And if there's time, we'll get to any questions that are shared in the chat too. So if you have questions, queries, or perceptions that you would like to explore with us, then please do drop them into the chat on LinkedIn and we'll do our best to get to you. But should we jump in at the deep end right now, Gabe, and get started with some misconceptions?
Let's do it.
All right. Misconception number one, HubSpot websites can't be creative. So, Gabe, is that true or false?
Oh, big time false on that one. This is probably actually one of the most common misconceptions. And potentially probably goes back to that, 2006 CMS that lasted till about 2013, because that was actually true at one point. If you were using that old version of the CMS, it was a little bit more difficult to be creative with it. But that is definitely not the case these days. I mean, if you can dream it, you can build it. There's nothing from a creative aspect you can't do.
Absolutely. I think there's a few factors to why this misconception or misunderstanding sort of hangs around, lingers. I've heard it put another way as well. I've heard the phrase, I can't achieve my vision on HubSpot CMS, my vision for my brand or for my user experience. But the reality is that it's not true. You can build practically anything on HubSpot if you know how. Here at Blend, we can happily build a website like HubSpot's own, like Stripe's, like GitHub's. I think bigger factors that limit creativity are really budget in the majority of cases, because it takes lots of time to create rich visuals, rich animations that are also efficient, that are aligned to a brand and achieve an objective. There's so much time that goes into the creation of those things that, often when you're looking at the best of the best in terms of websites, businesses, particularly SMEs, they simply don't have the budget to realize those types of creativity, but it can be done if you do. There's probably a couple of other factors, I think. One of them is, HubSpot is unashamedly, perfect for the SME, right? A lot of the audience that we're trying to help grow better are B2B SMEs, and they have certain requirements of a website. Excessive creativity doesn't necessarily produce better results, and budget constraints exist in a lot of situations too. And then I think as well, there's another challenge that's common to a lot of CMSs, which they force us to a certain degree to think in terms of modules. And if you design modules first, you don't necessarily end up with a really highly crafted, holistic website user experience. And I think that's a challenge for some people to sort of break down the modular thinking to produce a holistic design. And that's become a core part of our process here at Blend, to start design holistically first before we think about how we build it into a reusable set of modules, so that we don't fall into the traps that modular thinking can produce.
Yeah. I mean, I like to call it sometimes random acts of marketing. And I think that fits right in, right? You see a shiny object, you think this is going to look cool, but at the end of the day, you definitely need a more, like you're saying, holistic strategy that's going to look at your goals, look at who the audience you're serving is, and what's going to be best.
Yeah. More creativity doesn't necessarily drive better results, but the platform, HubSpot CMS, is not a barrier to that creativity at all. It's usually time and capability. So absolutely true. Can wholeheartedly say that HubSpot websites can be as creative as you like, and it's not a true perception of the platform that it limits you in that area. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, just I think from a context of the technology you can use, there's no limit to using JavaScript, to using CSS. Use whatever libraries you want, and put in whatever animations you want, design it how you like. It's all going to work.
Yeah, HubSpot supports all the technologies that people should be using to create these creative user experiences, whether it's, animation, video hosting, imagery, et cetera, et cetera. The things that it doesn't support, if there are any, are things you definitely shouldn't be using, period, because they're terrible for performance. And yeah, this creativity axis sometimes, exists perpendicular to other performance metrics that you've got in mind. So it's restraint that's needed as well if you want to achieve business objectives. But in no way does HubSpot CMS prevent you or limit you in terms of achieving a creative end result. I think, again, because so many SME websites will be built using, maybe template starting points that are driven from a modular perspective as opposed to a brand perspective, and on understandably limited timescales and budgets, it might create the wrong illusion that there's a limit there to what can be achieved. But take a look at the Blend portfolio. I think you'll see straight away that actually the barriers are easily broken, and you can do some quite exciting things on it if you've got the time, budget, and need.
Yeah, but seeing a lot of your work as well, because you guys really do push the creative aspect and really create some great looking websites that I think perform very well as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We are very, very careful about optimizing all parts of that sort of, well, there's probably at least a trifecta of conditions that need to be, good to drive the result we're looking for. But creativity is very important to us. So we do try to achieve the best, redefine what's possible on the platform through the websites that we create for our clients. Okay. Great stuff. Well, we're off to a good start. We've disproved one misconception there with our honest experience and advice. Misconception number 2, and I hear this probably as often, is that HubSpot websites are slow. So, Gabe, true or false?
False. Definitely false here. Yeah, I mean, we've heard this in the past too. And actually, one of the things that's really interesting is when we actually launched the CMS in 2013, it was actually considered one of the fastest CMSs on the market.
Right.
And I will say, actually, over time, we did see a little bit, as we started to kind of add more features and expand the platform, we did actually see a little bit of a dip in performance. But we actually have an entire team dedicated to just speed. And especially over the last couple of years, that's actually been a very big focus of ours. And so speed, we are in line or better than competitors when we look at it, because we actually keep a tight focus on that. And so we're constantly monitoring our speed versus our competitors, and we're definitely in line or beating a majority of them. So, I mean, when it comes to speed, I feel like a lot of times people don't know necessarily what's affecting the speed. Like, is, hey, I just put this 5 megabyte image on this page, 3,000 by 3,000 pixels, and I forgot to resize it. And it could be as simple as that. But I mean, there's so many different factors that go into it. And we do have actually some tools that are going to be coming in the future, very specific for speed. That's a bit probably of an exclusive here, but we are working on some tools specifically for site speed that'll be released to the market in the future, actually.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Before we touch on, the reasons why this is an untrue misconception, why do you think it is a perception? Why do people hold the belief or come away with the impression that HubSpot sites are slow? What do you think drives that thinking?
That's a good question. I mean, it could be because one of the things is we make it easy for marketers to build within our CMS. And actually, when we created the CMS many years ago, it was actually created specifically for the marketer. It was a marketer CMS. It was supposed to be something that was easy. Like if you look at some other CMSs, they may say they're for the end user. It may say that the experience is easy for the end user, but the reality is it was created for a developer and to be used by a developer. Where we took the opposite approach. We created this specifically for the marketer at first, so much so that when we redid it in 2013, there wasn't as many developer features. And so for us, even at that point, we found the trade-off of not having the developer features versus what it offered at the time. It was still greater. So we decided in 2013, hey, we're gonna try this and stick with it. And the developer features came over time, at that point. But I think if you look at that site speed, it could just be a part of it could be related. It could have marketers manage the website, and marketers maybe don't know as much as, hey, I need to resize this, I need to do this potentially. But yeah, maybe it's just because of also the just lack of insight maybe people have into how they measure certain things. There are, I should be, just to be completely transparent, there are some things being a SaaS CMS that with any SaaS CMS, you're not going to be able to tweak. So when you're looking at, hey, my Lighthouse report is giving me ABC and I can't go in and tweak this because it's a SaaS CMS, that's could be part of it as well. But at the end of the day, it is a very fast CMS.
Absolutely. I think all of that and probably testing the wrong sites to get a measure of how fast they are is perhaps a factor in coming away with that perception. Frankly, from my point of view, HubSpot's basically optimized for speed. It's as good as it could possibly be. There's fast infrastructure, global CDN, HTTP2, SSL, Brotli compression, image optimization, code minification. HubSpot has everything that you could possibly ask for to set it up for speed. But the latent potential speed of any platform can be undone by what you develop on top of it. And so that's why so much care has to be taken to develop wisely and to create content, wisely too. The number one factor in poor page speed results is by far image size, and it's when, teams of people get working on a website and they're not aware that they need to give the CMS the best possible starting point from which to optimize the content by right sizing their images, compressing them, etc. That you can easily undo the work of the platform that's beneath it. And there's an element as well, which in like code can be efficient or less efficient, depending on what objective you're trying to achieve. If you've got a custom coded website that's for your brand only, then it can be as lean as possible in terms of CSS and JavaScript. Whereas if you're, leveraging a template, then there might be a bit more CSS in there than you specifically need. Probably not enough to dramatically impact things, but, every little bit counts. So there's a few reasons why you can chip away at the potential performance of HubSpot, but that doesn't change. The performance of HubSpot, as you say, has been measured as being one of the fastest on the market. And, we regularly build sites that are creatively, groundbreaking, but still score high in the green for all the things that matter when it comes to Lighthouse performance and core web vitals and so on.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at template that comes with HubSpot, if you look at a lot of the marketplace templates, a lot of them will kind of state their page speed scores. And we have so many that are just in that mid to high 90s. I forget the exact scores, but it's like very well into the green, like some of the best scores you can get. I know you're not getting that 100%. I feel like nobody's getting 100%, but we're getting, I forget the exact numbers, but in that very high 90s, mid to high 90s for score. And
and I mean, that's more than good enough for the generation of the results that typically a B2B, SME, or even enterprise is looking to achieve, right? As you say, there is a cost in terms of performance implication of a SaaS platform, but the benefit far outweighs the sort of the negative impact, because you don't need 100% on those scores to provide a great user experience, acquire and engage traffic, and turn it into pipeline by any means. But you need to be fast enough to not frustrate the visitor when they arrive.
Yep. 100%.
Super duper. Okie dokie. Let's move on to misconception number 3 then. HubSpot CMS isn't extendable or customizable. True or false?
Another really common one. Highly, highly false here. Yeah. I mean, we have so much to extend the CMS, APIs, serverless functions, being able to use whatever you want from a JavaScript library perspective. You can use React now on the platform. Just so many different ways that you can extend it. Yeah.
Why do you think that's a perception? Where do you think that this originates from?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, look, again, it could just be coming back to we weren't as extendable at one point. So, if you tried us back in 2013, yeah, we didn't really have much for APIs. We didn't have as much extensibility, and over time we have built it. So it could just be going back to, we didn't try it or we tried it at a time where maybe it wasn't extendable. But no, it's extremely extendable now. And again, you can integrate with different platforms. You can build your own apps within the ecosystem. There's so much you can do with it.
Yeah, I think that historic state of things, and perhaps, prior experience with WordPress and the huge amount of plugins that are available, unvetted plugins, might add, that are available, creates an expectation which, when held up, HubSpot doesn't meet in quite the same way. But I think there's something really advantageous or beneficial about the fact, well, one, HubSpot is extremely extendable, but the way in which it's extendable, I think, increases the safety and the security of those extensions. You've mentioned all the key ways: the serverless functions, the API itself, webhooks, coded workflow actions, integrations that are, vendor provided. They all exist and provide methods of extending or customizing HubSpot, but there's a degree of security and there's a degree of, guardrails around how you build out bespoke functionality or features to your website that I think is really beneficial, because every plugin that you can reach for in a moment's, at a moment's notice and plug into your open source website is potentially a vulnerability to that website. It's also potentially a conflict that can bring that website offline later on. And so I think extending HubSpot the way that you do, it makes you think about, well, one, how important is this feature to our business? And a lot of the plugins that get used are there to facilitate things that are nice to have, but not critical to have. And if it is critical, okay, the effort that you go to extend it, build it into HubSpot might be a smidge higher, but it's done in a very safe and secure way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was honestly one of the reasons that we really liked HubSpot initially, was the, you didn't have to maintain all these different plugins. You didn't, man, it was such, I mean, we were huge open source fanatics at that point, but, very, very well known actually in the open source community. And, but just got really tired of having to troubleshoot all these different plugins that you were using. And it just got to be such a pain. And so actually moving to the CMS, and at the time, there wasn't this whole ecosystem. Now we have this whole app ecosystem and all these tools you can use and so on. But just the ability to actually know that something is vetted. We go through a very in-depth vetting process to make sure that everything is up to speed as far as security, as far as making sure it fits standards of what an add-on should be. So it's not like anybody can just go in and publish something. So that does make sure that, you aren't going to see big site speed issues, that you aren't going to see security issues, that everything's been vetted. And so it is, I think, an important part of any ecosystem. But yeah, I mean, extendability, if you don't want to use what's out there, then build your own, and then you have it as you need it. And it's not super difficult. And we have all the tools you need to do that as a developer.
Yeah. And I think it encourages a healthy level of caution and consideration, which is actually what should take place when you're making changes to a business critical asset like your website. I think it goes without saying that you need to take care with what you do and what you introduce into that ecosystem. So I'm all for it. But again, another misconception that we truthfully believe is untrue. HubSpot's very extensible, very customizable. It's good stuff. Good stuff. All right. I think we're on misconception number 4. HubSpot CMS is expensive.
Ooh, this is one of my favorites, actually. Well, I guess it's all relative, right? So yes, you're paying a monthly fee for the CMS, but at the same time, you're not necessarily having to pay for maintenance. You're not necessarily having to pay for plugins or different software that you have to add on to get the full functionality that you need. you're not on something breaks or goes down. So I always like to look at total cost of ownership. And if you look at total cost of ownership, you're going to see that there's a significant actually savings. People like to look at just the initial cost of the CMS, but you have to factor in maintenance. You have to factor in app costs. You have to factor in, how often you have to fix things that are broken, and even just hosting and SSL certificates and all the technology stack that comes along with it too. And then you start to look at that total cost of ownership, and you really start to look at the bills that you're paying over the last year or two to keep this thing up and running. You're going to find that the CMS in most cases is going to be significantly cheaper.
Yeah. I think if you tot up the potential cost and even the opportunity cost of all the things that are required to achieve the website objectives you have for your business in particular, then the cost that you pay for HubSpot, starts to look very, very reasonable indeed, very, very reasonable. There's also a difference between cost and value. And like you said, there's a huge value in having a reliable, secure, maintained, updated, personalizable platform powering your business online that, again, can change how you view the monthly cost and the total cost of ownership, for sure. And that's, that's one of the things that I think we haven't even got onto the other features that HubSpot as an ecosystem has to offer you, right? So like, CMS, hosting, security, certificates, et cetera. Cost comparison starts to look very, very good. But I don't think you can really put a price on the benefit of having your website directly connected to your marketing database or your CRM and what that makes possible. I think that's got huge value to businesses if it's of benefit and use.
I mean, also, what's the value of peace of mind knowing you're not going to get hacked, or that your data is safe, or what's the value to, as you were saying, having a CRM and knowing that you can do personalization, right? Or A/B testing, because tools like that, like a personalization tool alone, can be more than the entire cost of our CMS. Just that one piece alone, not to mention, hey, I'm layering on A/B testing tools, and I'm layering on an SEO tool now, and that's all built in. And so when you look at value and what the value is to that business, not only are you getting the value of that tool, but that's helping you generate more leads. That's helping you convert more. Leads. And so, there's big value in tools like that as well.
I think I like as well the fact that HubSpot pricing in this area is pretty straightforward and simple, right? You've really only got tier of features that you require and number of seats, users that you need to think about. I, for one, don't know how much bandwidth my website uses. I don't know how many modules and pages I'm going to create in the next 3 years. I don't even really want to think about those things, from a cost of my software platform perspective. So I think the pricing structure is relatively simple, and that's an advantage too.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
And so, yeah, while the sort of sticker price, when you're comparing one pricing page to another online might look higher, there's an awful lot that you're getting for that price. And I think you can really start to see the value of it when you start to analyze and scrutinize, not only what are you getting for it, but what might your costs increase to if you're using other providers and platforms, if things change, if you become very, very successful overnight, could impact you in the wallet. Okay. All right. Yeah, I was just going to say as well, okay, if as a business, you have no need for an integrated solution that connects to your CRM, you don't have any need for features that go beyond core CMS functionality, then you might have a business case for using a platform that comes at a price, at a cheaper sticker price, but tons of value embedded in HubSpot Content Hub that makes the price look very good indeed. All right, we'll just give Gabe a second to get reconnected. All right, well, while we wait for Gabe to rejoin us, I'm going to turn to the question that's been asked in the comments, which I think was on the long list for questions for this session as well. So it's quite interesting that it's come around again. So David Boyd, let me see if I can pop this on the screen. David Boyd asks us, when CMS is referenced from a point of view of HubSpot, does it truly fit into that decoupled headless content management solution? Create once and publish anywhere? Or is this constrained to be just usable within the HubSpot ecosystem? So I suppose, to frame that in the context of today's discussion, the perception is that HubSpot is not a headless, decoupled CMS solution. And I'd have to say that for the most part, I think that's a true and accurate perception. By the book, by definition, HubSpot's system isn't built to be headless. It isn't built to be the content provider to a multitude of platforms and outputs. It is in that respect, I think the accurate term is to call it more of a monolithic integrated CMS, where you've got front end and back end all part of the one SaaS platform. That's not to say that there aren't headless capabilities within it, because HubSpot has a relational database built in called HubDB, where you can build tables of information and data. And it's got API connectivity that lets you go into HubSpot and get some of the content out from HubDB, for example, also from Pages. Then you can construct and construe some headlessness to it. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that HubSpot is a true intentional headless CMS. Welcome back, Gabe.
Hey, internet problems. You gotta love them, right?
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. I took a moment to segue to the question that we received in the chat, which I was doing my best to answer, but you might have some smart points to add, which is essentially the perception is HubSpot's not a headless CMS. And I've said that's a true or accurate perception, more or less.
Yeah. So by the definition of a headless CMS, we have about 95% of what's needed to be a headless CMS, right? We have the APIs, we have a lot of the infrastructure for it. We're just missing one piece. There's one piece that is missing to make us a true headless CMS, and that is the ability to with the triggers, essentially the triggers that say, hey, something, they push this out to update it. That's the only thing we're really missing from a headless CMS. But actually, when we get the question about headless a lot, people don't necessarily always need that functionality. So we have things like content embed, which allow you to use it with third-party solutions, or we just have APIs and serverless functions. And a lot of times that's all people need. They don't necessarily need it to be like a real-time update. They can do it on timed intervals instead of doing it real time, and that fits. So depending on what your headless needs are, a lot of times we can actually fulfill those headless needs. But if you do really need that trigger, it is something we've talked about many times over and over. And so I think it's still something we're deciding if we want to invest in or not. But so we are missing that one trigger piece. But like I said, a lot of people find that with APIs, with serverless functions, with GraphQL and what we can do with GraphQL and some of that and content embed, that is enough for what they need for their specific headless needs. But yeah, if you do need those triggers, I wouldn't call us a pure, 100% headless CMS at this point. But we do offer many of the tools needed. And then too, I mean, if you look at a true headless CMS, there's probably going to be a lot of bells and whistles that are missing that you'd see in a true headless CMS compared to ours.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you've helped me understand that HubSpot's actually far closer to headlessness than I perhaps thought. Although I like you pointed out that we've got APIs, HubDB, serverless functions. You've added content embed to that, so you can achieve some headless like functionality. But HubSpot, as far as I'm aware, has not been trying to build a headless solution for the most part thus far. We're solving the problems, that businesses have, in our core target market, and headlessness doesn't often feature inside those requirements. So it's understandable. But you're far closer than I perhaps even understood myself. So that's really useful. Thank you for adding to that. Yeah. So with that question, we came across our first, basically true perception or misconception that wasn't a misconception about HubSpot CMS. So I feel good about the fact that we've got one of those. But we're perhaps another one now. So misconception number 5 on my list: HubSpot isn't a solution for e-commerce. True or
yeah. So I'd say true and false, right?
Yeah, agreed.
We have e-commerce, right? We have e-commerce solutions, but we typically recommend it's not meant for having a big e-commerce store. It's really, I want to sell some services, or I want to sell a small amount of products, maybe 10 to 20 products. I don't need like any complex tax rules. I don't need any complex shipping rules. It's a very light e-commerce solution, and that's what it's meant for, light e-commerce needs. So I would say it's true if you're looking for anything like more than those light needs. But if you need just some light needs, if you need to run like bookings and just bill for bookings, or you want to just bill for services, if you want to bill for a few amount of products, I shouldn't say bill, I should say buy. Invoicing is a little different, I guess, but that's an absolute use case you can use. But if you're looking for a full e-commerce store, you're going to be better off finding one of our partners who does that, and we have some great integrations that you can use with that. Find the power of a world-class marketing system with and CMS with some of those e-commerce platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, HubSpot's commerce features are pretty damn compelling for the right use case. They certainly enable you to get paid, for the products and services you have to offer, both on your website and within your CRM and sales processes. And I think that's worth knowing, that the commerce features of HubSpot are not limited to the website. They actually, flow throughout the whole CRM, and that's where they have some of their really, strong benefits. But like with the headlessness thing, HubSpot hasn't been trying to solve the challenges of large scale e-commerce stores with baskets of goods, shipping and handling, tax and and fees and so on and so forth. And while you could absolutely build all of that on HubSpot if you so wished, you would probably, in the majority of cases, be far more effective if you went and adopted a platform that would integrate and would supply you with all of those features out of the box, rather than spend your time, crafting it using the extendability that we've already talked about. So it's a true and false perception of HubSpot that it does support e-commerce, and it does have some great e-commerce features for the right use case, but false in that it doesn't tick all of the boxes. And within B2B e-commerce, our experience is that probably about 50% of the time, a basket is a requirement, or it's high on the wish list. And therefore that's something that's in most cases going to be provided more quickly, more easily by a specialized platform and partner that can connect with your database and your CRM and your marketing channels, than building that natively on HubSpot.
Yeah, totally agree.
Good. Okay, got a couple more for you, maybe getting into the slightly more nuanced ones, but I have heard these more than once. HubSpot CMS is hard to switch away from. Now, I always think it's interesting to start a conversation about the end, but it does come up. So true or false? And I suppose I could reframe the question by saying it's harder to switch away from than other platforms I might choose. Yeah. Would you say that's true or false?
Yeah, under the rephrased, I would say that's it's, well, I guess it's the way you say it, but it's no harder than any other CMS, right? I think is what we're trying to get at. That it's a pain to move from any CMS to any CMS, and it's no different of the way you're going to do it. You're going to spot to another CMS versus any other CMS moving to HubSpot. No CMS makes tools that are going to make it easy to move off their CMS, but we do actually have a lot of tools to make it easier. We have a lot of exports and things that, hey, if you do want to leave, we have tools that allow you to export. We have tools that allow you to do a lot of these things. Even as simple as we can just do a flat full HTML export, so you could actually just export everything into HTML and go pop it up somewhere else if you need to. So I'd say we actually make it easier, because I don't know other CMSs who do a lot of these things. So it's probably easier to move off of HubSpot than other CMSs, but no CMS is easy to move off of or migrate to.
No, exactly. And I think, anyone who's got experience of multiple CMSs over the years, like you have, will know just how accurate that statement is. And I think, to a certain extent, the websites that we see online when we browse to a URL don't really exist. They are the output of a complicated set of processes, interpreting information that does not exist in the format that we consume it. And the information that makes that website, viewable by us, can't be grabbed and lifted and shifted, right? We don't take screenshots of one website and put them on another CMS. It doesn't work like that. We've got a code, and we've got a code in a way that that other platform understands. And so there's very little portability in website content, full stop. As in, you can't just screen grab it and move it, and you can't just export it and dump it in a new CMS and expect it to work and look right. And as a result, switching CMS is always a challenge, always a cost associated, time required. So it's not a good reason to not choose a certain CMS, is probably the accurate statement. And it's no harder. In fact, it's probably easier, a degree easier, when you're using HubSpot CMS. Yeah, I think I would share that too.
Yep, absolutely.
Good. All right, cool. Another one that has come up multiple times and is maybe in a way connected to our discussion about speed, but nevertheless, the question has been, or the statement has been said, that HubSpot isn't good for SEO. Have you ever heard that one?
Yes.
True or false?
False. I mean, it's no different than any other CMS, right? You have the ability to tweak what you want to tweak. And look, I mean, like we mentioned earlier, there are a few things being a SaaS CMS that you're not going to be able to change or tweak. And that's going to be the same with really any SaaS CMS, that you're not going to be allowed to. There's just certain factors that are related, very technical part of the SEO, that you're not going to be able to control. And that's just because you're not necessarily hosting the site. But as far as SEO goes, we have all the tools you need to optimize your SEO. We have some really, really actually great tools that actually look at all the different SEO aspects of your site from a technical standpoint and make sure that you're achieving them. And you're going to be able to edit and modify those things. So when it comes to SEO, that is definitely a big misconception.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've already mentioned a lot of the technologies that are built in that are essentially prerequisites nowadays for good SEO, which is, from a speed perspective, Brotli compression, image optimization, code minification, CDN, et cetera, and then I think everything else is down to we, the user, and what we choose to do on the platform. And by far, one of the best, strategies for ensuring your website on HubSpot or any other CMS is optimized for SEO is to use restraint in the size of images that you upload, restraint in the amount of videos, animation that are suboptimal and not optimized for the web, restraint in the number of cache busting technologies that you use. Every time you call back to the server for something, you are potentially, chipping away at the potential performance and speed and therefore SEO of a page. But if you apply restraint, then in addition, HubSpot has all of the requirements for good SEO. You've got a place to put your meta title, a place to put your meta description, a place to have a H1. All the basics are there, and you've got tools to help you understand, how well optimized you are for a keyword, how well your clusters are interconnected, how well you're ranking, and how many impressions you're getting, and so on and so forth. So it's a very, very good platform for the SEO conscious. And it's in no way bad for SEO, and it is good for SEO. So yet another myth busted, I'm pleased to say. I'm pleased to
Yeah,
say.
yeah. And I mean, we've even taken a lot of the, like you said earlier, we've taken a lot of the technology that can be more difficult to actually manage an ad and actually just done some of that automatically, like structured data, right? There's, if you have to code in structured data, but we have ways of making it easy where you can just click a button and it's going to add some structured data to what you're doing. And so there's some technology under the hood too that we just take and make it easy for you to use, where it may be more difficult to add some of those things, typically where you might have to get into code, for us giving that to you as the end user. And also things like AMP and just making it easy to add AMP to your website, which again is something that can is a pain to add in a lot of cases, but making that easy as well.
Yeah. We can't overstate the importance of the content you create and the keywords you choose to optimize for and the way that you connect that content. Those things can have a far bigger negative impact on your SEO than anything, a CMS like HubSpot can do. If you've got a sound strategy and you've got HubSpot CMS underneath your website, then you're in a great position to do really, really well with SEO. There's no doubt about it. Fantastic. All right, we've reached the end of my list. Are there any misconceptions, Gabe, that you'd wished that we'd got to that you want to add on to the list?
Ooh, I feel like we've covered actually all of them. I'm trying to think. No, I think we've covered them all.
Those are certainly the ones that come up most commonly in conversations we have, and we have a lot of conversations about HubSpot CMS. So, that's a good set to have covered off. Okay.
Maybe actually one. There is actually one, and you guys could probably talk about this, but that we don't have the developer tooling actually, or that you can't use the tools that you want as a developer. I think that's maybe another common misconception that we get. And excuse me, but or actually too, people don't. I don't want to code using Hubble or just the learning curve needed, and I think these are a little bit more developer focused, but of course, any new system you're going to learn, there's going to be a learning curve. But now we have things like React where you can code natively in React now,
Right.
So that bringing that learning curve down significantly because you can use the tools that you like. Also, coding in a local development environment, right? Do I have to code in the design manager, or can I local coding environment? And you can use your local coding environment. We do have a command line interface as well for that. We have tools like GraphQL. There's a lot of developer tools there that allow you to code in your own native environment. And we're trying to make it and continue to make it as easy as possible for developers to be able to use our platform and make the learning curve as easy as possible with native tools that they want to use. And even I actually know some really hardcore developers who, initially came over using things like the local development environment, and actually ended up switching to Design Manager just because they found that they're saving more time actually doing it that way. But
Okay.
We do support developers, and we're continuing to invest in the developer experience. And so I think that can be a misconception around that.
Agreed. We make great use of local development, command line interface, staging, and other features that are built in, for developers into HubSpot CMS. And if it were not for our development team here at Blend, then we wouldn't be able to achieve the great things that we do achieve. So absolutely, development is key to the success that we've seen with HubSpot CMS. Maybe in a related topic, I think there's a misconception about CMS, like broadly, and this is not limited to HubSpot, but a misconception that I see in the market is that doing everything in a drag and drop way, having no need for developers whatsoever, has become something of a business aspiration. Like it's a sort of a destiny to be reached, and I actually think that to some degree the opposite is true. That drag and drop, developer-free website creation is an excellent way to get started, to build and level up your website quickly and easily on a limited budget and get your initial success. But as you grow and mature, your aspiration should be, in my opinion, to really, really need and use and benefit from, expert development resource, tooling like the things you've mentioned, and maybe not have as much drag and drop freedom, which means you've got to really look out for your brand's application and consistency and the padding and the margin and the font size and the, you know, the size of everything, you know, to leverage some of, you know, in HubSpot terms, some of its other features like sections and, you know, modular construction to streamline the process of publishing content. But I often hear people, you know, set being completely free of developer resource and having a completely drag and drop experience being their kind of business ambition. And I think that's a misunderstanding about what's good and what's important about CMS.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is also just depending on your business and your needs, right? Like if I'm an SMB and I'm just started with my startup, the great thing is you can grab a template off the marketplace and you know, use that for the first phases of your business to get it going. But if I'm an established business and I do have brand guidelines, you can still find that happy medium of, you know, we know that there's going to be pages that we want to edit. We just want to create emails quickly. We just want to be able to create a landing page quickly. As a marketer, you don't want to have to always rely on your developer. And I think as a developer too, the developer doesn't necessarily want to just create like just this little landing page here all the time necessarily. So you have that option, right? So you can create it in a way where you can create an experience that's great for marketers who and allow them to do kind of some of the things that they want to do. Hey, I want to be able to get this campaign out the door, and I don't want to have to go contact my developer to wait 3 weeks to get that campaign out the door. I just want to be able to do it myself. And same thing, like I can use my developer to say, hey, we have these pages and we have this amazing like calculator we built, or we have this membership section that we built. And you know, we were able to put the value in working with our developer to create those high value areas that are going to help us with conversion, create great customer experiences to create on brand. And then over here, I can still create my landing pages. I still can go into this page and make this edit without having a lot of trouble. And I think finding the right balance with that is like the sweet spot, because yeah, there's definitely things that you're going to need a developer for that are more complex, but that are going to be high value for you. And there's things that you're not going to need a developer for. And it's finding that right balance. So I'm not always going out to my developer and being, I need to edit this page. I just need to change these 5 words. I need to create a landing page here, and just making it, I think, a good experience for the marketer and giving them the flexibility they need, but yet giving them the power they need to create custom solutions and create like these really high value pods as well.
Yeah, I think, you know, to add to that, I think everything should always be editable, and developers can give you that editability in an extremely consistent and streamlined fashion. But and marketers can and should be able to publish new pages, landing pages, emails, and edit the content of everything they've got with ease and with zero reliance on the developer. But what a developer can offer you in parallel with that is really what takes you to the next level of website success and the role it can play in your business growth. So yeah, the sweet spot, I think, is what we need to be aiming for. That's absolutely right. Fantastic. Okay, well, that's about all we've got time for today. So I think we had better wrap things up there. I hope that we've given everybody listening and watching some useful information and some interesting things to think about. If you're looking for any help at all building your dream website on HubSpot CMS, then don't hesitate to get in touch with Blend. You can check us out at blendb2b.com or reach out to me directly either on LinkedIn or by email at phil@blendb2b.com. Any final words from you, Gabe, before we wrap up?
No final words today. Looking forward to Inbound, and everything's coming with Inbound. So if you guys are going to be there, come say hi to me. Come say hi to Phil. Phil's also going to be there too. I know you guys have a booth this year at Inbound, don't you?
We do. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, if you're going to be at Inbound 2024, Blend is going to be there, stand number 21, I believe. So come and check us out. Talk to us about your website needs, objectives, hopes, and we'll show you what we can do. I look forward to seeing some of you there. Gabe, thanks for your time today. And everybody watching, see you next time.